You're listening to the More Than a Worship Leader podcast. Here's your host, Gary Durbin.
Welcome to the More Than a Worship Leader podcast, where we talk about worship ministry in the local church. Today we have Roger O'Neill. Dr. O'Neill serves as professor of worship at Cedarville University. He's served for over 30 years as a full-time and part-time minister for worship and has a wealth of experience and knowledge in all aspects of traditional and contemporary worship. He received his Ph.D. in music theory from the University of Texas at Austin in 1996 and has been at Cedarville University since 2002. So, Dr. O'Neill, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Gary. It's great to join you. I'm looking forward to chatting today.
Yeah, man. Our connection started with the Worship 424 conference. And so It's been fun to be there the last couple of years. It's a great conference for worship leaders and church leaders.
Yeah, I've been glad to have you. Yeah, we're looking forward to another good year. We're just now getting a registration open, worship424.com. Our special guest this year is Paul Balash, so we're excited about having him. Great worship pedagogue and worship leader and songwriter, so it's going to be a great year, hopefully.
Well, man, I hope to be there because I have always said that Paul Balash is the guy I want to be like when I grow up.
Absolutely.
I would love to see that guy and talk to that guy.
Yeah, he's super unbelievable. Yeah.
An awesome worship leader. Awesome. Just a great guy, great leader. So
yeah, super humble. Just as we talk to him, he's just very laid back and very chill and just, it's not about him. And he wants to involve as many different people as possible and not have him be in the spotlight all the time. He's a super guy.
Yeah. So Roger, where did you grow up? Where are you from? You want to talk about kind of like where you're from and then maybe like marriage and kids and all the things?
Yeah, absolutely. Life story in 2.5 minutes or less. I grew up in Arkansas, is home for me, so I'm a Southern boy at heart. Went to school at Ouachita Baptist University in Arkansas, and then continued my education in Dallas at Southern Methodist University and Ph.D. at University of Texas at Austin. Studied primarily music theory. I just love music and how it works. And for me, that's been very informative for me is to thinking particularly about worship leading and worship planning, thinking about how mashups are going to work, modulations are going to work, underscores, and how harmonies work. Those things have been very helpful to me in that regard. We didn't have, more traditional, we had very traditional church music studies at that time and really nothing in the area of contemporary worship when I was going to school. So I'm so excited to be a part of helping, really plan contemporary worship for our students, because I think that's, the wave of the future. We have, my wife and I have been married 37 years. We have 6 kids. Kind of empty nesters at this point. We have 2 of our youngest kids that are still at school at Cedarville University doing Masters of Divinity. And the last one kind of left home maybe for the last time this summer. So enjoying empty nest, but love our kids. And they're just launched out. 2 of our students, our own kids, were students of mine at Cedarville in a worship program. And then several involved in vocational ministry and just living for the Lord. It's been really exciting.
That's great. So college took you to Texas, huh?
Yes, indeed. That's where I met my wife in Texas. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So very important question. Would you say Whataburger or In-N-Out?
Whataburger, without a doubt.
Amen, brother. Amen.
Although I think In-N-Out's a good Christian company, I think, too. I think they're faith-based, but, Whataburger's all day long. Yeah.
Oh, man. And I love In-N-Out, too, but I've just always been a Whataburger guy. So
for sure.
Yeah. So when you think about your years, 30 years as a worship minister, why don't you talk about that, kind of the history of that and what you've experienced? Because you've experienced when we've been doing worship ministry for 20 or 30 years, we've experienced a lot, seen a lot of changes. So talk about that.
Yeah, sure. In fact, I was talking in class today, how back in the day, I started really leading early in college, and in the early 80s. We were seeing a lot of worship renewal begin to happen at that point, but In Arkansas, where I grew up, there was a lot of more rural settings and, behind the times of some of the worship changes that were happening in the early 80s. But yeah, I grew up in a Baptist church, Baptist preacher's son, and really started, piano and organs where it was at, and small churches leading almost exclusively hymns. When we ended up doing, a modern worship song like I Love You, Lord, or I Exalt Thee, some of those initial songs, scripture songs like Seek Ye First, those were very formative and where there was a spirit of excitement to have new music, even the Gaither music, He Touched Me, or the because he lives, injecting some new life into more traditional hymnody, which I love and grew up on. But to see some of those changes begin to impact the church were significant. To see, the first time I remember seeing acoustic guitar in church was like, can we do
Yeah.
this? Is this okay? Drums, the same thing. I remember the first time that we had drums being used and the pushback on some of those things. And I think,
Hmm.
many people don't really understand the worship wars, which I'm grateful
Oh
for
man.
because, who wins in a civil war? Nobody wins. I mean, someone may get their way more than others, but are there any winners? The short answer is really no. It brought out the best of times because we had to compromise, we had to listen to each other, but it brings out the worst of time, which is the human heart and selfishness that you find when I want my music. So I'm grateful that our students kind of don't have some reference points to what the worship wars were about, because I feel like I'm a veteran of the worship wars.
Hmm.
Got the battle scars to prove it. And yet, I think even with, like I say, every war, you win something and you lose something. I think we have one embracing a lot of new music and contemporary worship styles, sometimes to the neglect of some of the repertoire and the hymns and things that have been somewhat lost in the process. So I think it's like fashion. What goes around comes around. I think my son, who was a worship pastor, he's like, Dad, I found this new song. I'm like, what is it? He's like, it goes, oh, worship the King, all glory. I was like, yeah, that's actually not a new song. That's an old song. But
Very
I'm
old.
glad you found it. That was important. So,
Yeah.
I think it's been an interesting perspective for me to have been through multitude transition of styles. And I love what God's doing in worship world today, with lots of different bands. In fact, I think we've kind of gotten, at one point, I think we were kind of nichey, in the last 10 or 15 years, maybe, of, we're a Hillsong church, we're a Bethel church, and kind of like maybe identifying with a certain church or publisher. I think probably we're in a better spot now than even at that time, because I think there's so much great music out there that it's become a little less nichey.
Hmm.
On the other hand, it's kind of challenging. I think the worship world now is interesting for us because we have worship traveling teams that go into churches, and it's really kind of hard to know
Hmm.
what songs they're going to know, because there are so many great songs out there. I think one of the benefits of having a hymnal is there was kind of a common repertoire that you knew that they would know a certain number of songs, or when there was maybe a more selective list of songs that might be
Hmm.
top CCLI songs, that they would know that selective list. But worship world is almost so broad, which is great. We have lots of good songs to choose from, but it's kind of challenging for us to roll into a church and know what music they know to be able to lead in worship. So, yeah, a lot of changes in worship, changed again since really the early '80s. So it kind of spans about 4 decades of what's happening in the church. But I'm excited. I'm encouraged. There's a lot of good things going on.
Yeah. I love when people mention the worship wars because if you fought in them, you appreciate them. You know
Right.
what we're doing now is not always what's been. And I remember even surrendering to the call of ministry in my life, and I really felt God pulling me towards worship ministry in the late 90s. And I remember somebody telling me, "Yeah, I don't know that a church will actually just hire you to be a worship leader. Like I don't see that happening, you know. And so it's come a long way. And I remember my first church, and the first two churches I was in, I transitioned from traditional contemporary. And so I definitely fought in the worship wars. And I remember pulling out the acoustic guitar for the first time and leading with it. And we had 30 people leave the church the next day. So
Yeah, wild
it's, yeah, we've come a long way.
for sure.
So when you think about your role at Cedarville University and you think about the department you lead, how would you describe the Department of Music and Worship at Cedarville? How does it equip students?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we really kind of are a little bifurcated with the Department of Worship and the Department of Music. Um, when I first came to Cedarville, we had a very traditional church music degree and transitioned from a very traditional church music degree where we had a student whose primary instrument was tuba, who was a church music student. It's a little hard to lead worship with a tuba in your mouth. So we transitioned to more of a contemporary approach. In doing so, we've had to change our approach from classical guitar to more contemporary guitar to classical voice, classical piano. So we kind of have two different tracks. Again, one would be more a conservatory approach to music on our music side of our department, and then the worship side would be more preparing people again for more of what we would call our constituency. The churches that send our students and the churches that are likely to hire our students are going to be more blended toward contemporary. And so we prepare them. That's our target, really, audience in terms of style, in terms of preparation. We'll have traditional music theory classes where you may do a Beethoven sonata or a Bach fugue that you do analysis of. In more contemporary music theory, we're looking at U2, we're looking at the Beatles, we're looking at Broadway. So the approach is much more eclectic in terms of musical style in the worship world, the side of our department. So we do have a good number of worship students that we're, again, our worship, they kind of really have four different areas. They have, of course, classes in worship, classes in music. We know that music and worship aren't synonyms, but we know that the expectations for worship leaders to have musical skill. So we do auditions on the way in. We have first and second year reviews to make sure that they stay on target with their musical skills. So we have music, worship. We have a Bible minor for all of our students. But when we formed this degree, our worship advisory committee said worship students really need to know God's word. So on top of a Bible minor, they have 12 additional hours of Bible, among them Psalms, theology of worship, additional theology classes, and discipleship or biblical care and counseling, because we really want our students to be able to minister, not just do music, but to minister. So we also have specified electives as kind of the fourth leg of the chair. We found that even our worship advisory council, when we formed this degree, large church, small church, they're doing something else besides worship. So what is that something else? What is the value add? Can they edit a podcast? Can they do discipleship? Would they be a great person to lead a mission trip? Can they do youth? So we actually encourage our students to pick up a separate minor other than Bible so that they're equipped really just to serve the church. It'll help them in job placement, but it kind of helps with the other duties as assigned by pastor, or if it's a combination role for that student to step into to help serve the church once they graduate.
That's so wise and so beneficial. All the things that you said, the additional things, um, like the last thing you said about equipping them for other things is huge. And even I've benefited. We both know Anya, who went through your program, and she worked with me and for a while. And man, that was one of the first things I told her is like, let's see what kind of tools we can put in your tool bag, other than singing, other than music. And she, teaching her the media side. And so that's one thing I always tell people when it comes to worship. My worship leader role has always been music and media.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that can go into that media bucket depending on the church and depending on what you can do. So,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. No, that's a great combo. And, many of our students, of course, are digital natives, so they're used to that. In fact, we're looking at adopting AI in our, kind of a big thing that hit our campus. We're the first Christian campus to embrace AI, and so we're getting our
Mhm.
hands around that. And kind of the funny thing is, it's like, are we supposed to educate our students on AI because they probably know more about it than we do? So, our students do understand digital technology, but there are certain things that they don't. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't know how to wrap mic cables, or maybe they don't know how to set up a lighting board, and those things are really important. We do teach intro to music technology class, and that is actually the goal, is to whet their appetite to do more study, and some of them do, some of them don't. But I think that's great. You mentioned, having tools in your toolbox. Our purpose statement is equipping worshipers to serve, and
Mm.
so that first verb there, equipping, that's what we talk about a lot, is just having tools in your toolbox, because there's so many different tools and hats that we wear as worship leaders today, that we need those different tools to help us, whether it's coaching a band, or helping someone sing on tune, or whether it's fixing your a low end frequency in your soundboard you're trying to figure out. So all
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. And if you're at a portable church, how do you get the projector to work and how do you get ProPresenter to talk to it? And there's just so many things that have changed in the worship world. Like my dad was a music minister my whole life. And so when he was a music minister, it was a lot simpler. I mean,
yeah.
piano, organ, hymn books,
Yeah, pick the three numbers or four numbers of the song and you're ready to go. Yeah.
probably don't have spotlights.
No,
You
no,
know,
not at all. Yeah.
it's so it so with that, what I love about the past generation worship leaders is they get the other things. You mentioned that you equip your students with theology and equip them to do discipleship and thinking about caring for the flock. And that's really what this whole podcast and what I've written about is all about. More than a worship leader. It's more than what we do on the stage. It's also how we love people off the stage.
Yeah.
And so I love that you're equipping students in that way. So when you think about your students, you get a front row seat to this next generation of worship leaders. What are you seeing and what makes you hopeful?
Yeah, I see a lot of really positive things, and then there's some challenges, of course, as well. This generation, I love them because they're very authentic. They respond to authenticity. I think they read through a poser. If you're trying to fake it, if you act like you like them, that's probably not going to work. You need to really like them and love them as students. And so, I try to learn their names early on this week's first week of school, to learn their names and really just try to get to know them as people, not just as a number in the program, or not just as a good electric guitar player. And that's the same kind of skill that I want them to be able to model too. They need to not just say, this is the week, this is week 4 for ProPresenter, but this is someone that's a real person that I need to find out about them and love them. So I think they're very authentic. They really desire true worship. They desire I think they're a little less wowed by production, wowed by technology. Again, that's their native language, so to impress them with technology is probably not so much. um, I think they're eager to learn. I think those are really positive things about this generation that really excite me, for sure.
It's interesting that you mentioned the wild by technology because the thought that came to my mind is when those students go into a worship leader role at a church, they're going to be possibly responsible for the things like that, but they may not have authority in things like that. So have you talked to them about that and working under pastors or leadership that is wowed by that kind of stuff?
Yeah, for sure. That's one of the big pieces we talk about. We have a class called Intro to Worship Ministry. It's really talking about the relationship. Particularly, we do a whole week on worship leader as leader, and when you do have to exercise your leadership authority. And then we do a whole week on worship leader as team member. How do you function in a team? We'll do some basic personality testing, so that they think about, if they know the Enneagram type, or we use the Gary Smalley, the otter, lion, beaver approach, where you think about your personality and how you work well with other people. And so we do that as much as possible. It's kind of hard to replicate, real life situations that I hear about in real life of, yeah, the haze level at 45-minute discussion on a haze level, and like, yeah, I thought it needs to be like 52% in the sanctuary. Like, you guys talked about this almost an hour in your staff meeting. Okay. Yeah. Good luck. But we let them know those things happen, but it's a little hard to reproduce in the classroom. But we try to help them understand that these are real conflict potential things that they'll engage in a real life situation. Yeah.
Oh, yes, they will. I'm grateful that you guys are taking the time to equip them for that kind of stuff too.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment to plug the conference. Would you like to do that? Just kind of tell us that's coming up, what,
Yeah.
January?
Happy to do it. I think we're in about year 18. We've been doing this for a
Wow.
while. We have partnered with the Southern Baptist of Ohio and Cedarville University Worship Program to put on Worship 424 conference. It's sometimes the best kept secret around, even in our local area. Information can be found at worship424.com. We've just recently opened up registration. We don't have the full schedule, but at the top of the webpage, 424.com, you can see last year's schedule. We have approximately 120 breakouts that we have. I think we're among at least the top 5 worship conferences in the country in terms of size, but also the offerings that we have. Just an incredible amount of classes we have available for you. And it's really designed to be a whole team approach. Some conferences will be for worship leaders only. This is bring your whole team, which I love about the conference. And my heart is to help equip the local church. It is to what I call our weekend warriors, whether they're our grads or people who are just in our area, full-time, part-time, bivocational, whatever their case may be. We want you to bring your sound guy, your lighting guy, your soprano, your bass player, the whole 9 yards. And there will be something for them, targeted things, at least several targeted seminars for everybody, and then some things that will work every session that we think would be of interest to everybody, that we want to scratch all the needs as possible. And it's a lot crammed into about a 48-hour period. We start Friday morning with Cedarville Chapel, and it goes till about 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, so you can get back hopefully recharged and ready to go for Sunday morning for your service the next day. So it's been a delight and a pleasure. I think the last couple of years we've been about 1,500 people, so we've jumped up the last couple of years and just have seen a lot of people catching the vision for what we're trying to do. And it really is designed to be affordable. We lose money every year, and it's not our goal to lose money, but we underwrite it because Cedarville loves to equip the local church. The Southern Baptist of Ohio help share the burden of that too. I think the early bird registration for the conference is only like $50. As for the whole conference and a meal on a Saturday, we do God's Chicken with Chick-fil-A. So you can't go to Chick-fil-A for, $12, $15 anymore. So it is a very affordable thing to try to bring your whole team. The prices tier up, but if you do that early, in conjunction with this weekend, we also run WOW, which is Weekend of Worship for our high school students. We bring them in a little bit earlier. We start them on Thursday afternoon. We'll do meet and greet with the artist, which is kind of fun for the students to get to meet the artist. Many of our adults probably would like to do that, but we'd want to charge them a lot. But we want our high school students to have that experience. We also do coaching. So it's a situation that some Christian schools will actually bring their worship team, and we'll do worship band coaching with them. So they get kind of play in front of their peers and play in front of faculty members to get some coaching to get better at what they do. And the schools and churches that have taken advantage of that have found that's really helpful to them. Sometimes maybe telling them the same thing their director's telling them, but we have a little bit more authority because we're special and we are college teachers, That's also a great ad for those students. Again, we lose money on it every year. I think it's $60 for the whole weekend. That includes all of their meals for the weekend. So it's kind of we lose money on that because we just really want to help train that next generation. So whether you're 14 to 18-year-old for the weekend of worship, or whether you're on a praise team, and really any role, there'll be something for you for our worship conference.
That's great. Yeah, I've been the last 2 years. Absolutely love it. I like how you put that, the best kept secret. I think that's true. It's a great conference
Yeah,
and
we're
great
having more and
content.
more national influence. It's kind of been it started out as, 16 or 18 years ago as the Ohio Worship Leaders Conference. And when we joined them, we're like, let's supersize this thing. And as we've seen it grow almost every single year. In fact, it has grown every year. So it's really kind of blown up. I think we had 26 states this last year. And so we're getting more of a national reputation. We had people from all over the country last year, which was great.
Yeah, half of America. That's
Yeah.
that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Um, so to close off our time together, I want to ask you one more question. And this might be tough to summarize, but when you think about the next generation worship leaders, leaders that you are equipping, how would you summarize your advice and wisdom for those folks?
Yeah, I think that they are, while they're digitally oriented, I do think they want to mention the word authenticity. I do think they respond really well to authentic relationships. And so to let them know that you care about them as a person, and that you want to see them grow and develop, that you're real with them about your own struggles and about your story on how you struggle with a particular performance area or you struggle with relationships, that you are real with them. I think that's probably the first thing I would say. I would also say, I didn't really get into some of the negative things about this generation because I don't want to be too overly hard on them, but I do think um, it's a terrible derogatory word, but in the snowflake generation, there is a bit of that they have received a lot of positive feedback. So many times I think when we give them some corrective feedback, we have to be very careful how we do it. I think if we're leaning into that authenticity piece and they know we care about them as a person, but we have to be really careful with how we approach that constructive feedback. So we've got to give them that feedback to help them get better. We can't just keep telling them how great they are, but I do think we have to be very careful about that constructive feedback because it can be very hurtful if we don't wrap it in love.
That's great. Well, Roger, thank you so much for your investment in the next generation. It's exciting to see and hear what's going on there at Cedarville University. And yeah, and thanks for coming on the podcast today.
Hey, it's my pleasure, Gary. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for your work with the podcast, and love your emphasis on discipleship and really loving people well, because I do think we get overly focused and on our platform and the performance aspect of what we do to the neglect of the other. So thank you for that and being one of those weekend warriors doing it every week.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Please add this to your podcast list, review it, and share it with others. And don't forget about Gary's books, More Than a Worship Leader and More Than a Band, available on Amazon today.